It was a crisp autumn afternoon in a small, sleepy village nestled at the edge of a vast, ancient forest. The village elders often told stories about the woods, the kind that would make even the bravest children hesitate before stepping too far under the forest shadow. They spoke of the Leshy, a guardian spirit, a being that kept the forest balanced. Parents warned their children to respect the trees and the creatures within, to tread lightly and never wander too deep. But like all children, there was always one who thought the warnings were nothing but tall tales. His name was Ivan, a headstrong boy of 12, mischievous by nature and far too sure of himself. He spent most days running wild through the meadows, ignoring the advice of the villagers. "Don't stray too far from the forest," his mother said. The Leshi doesn't take kindly to disrespect. But Ivan only laughed. "I'm not afraid of some meet-up's forest spirit." With a slingshot in his pocket and a defiant grin on his face, Ivan wandered toward the forest. The village lay behind him as the towering trees rose ahead, their shadows growing longer in the fading daylight. He didn't stop at the forest edge like other children. Instead, he pressed forward, determined to prove he was braver than anyone else. At first, the forest seemed inviting. Golden leaves fluttered in the trees, and the air filled with the sounds of rustling branches and distant birdsong. Ivan's boots crunched over the fallen twigs and leaves as he strolled confidently through the woods, his slingshot in hand. He took aim at a passing squirrel, the stone whizzing past its tail. The creature darted up a tree with a high-pitched squeal, and Ivan snickered. But as he walked deeper, something strange began to happen. The paths that once seemed clear and familiar twisted and forked in unfamiliar ways. Trees that had been straight suddenly bent unnaturally, their branches like skeletal arms reaching out for him. The birds fell silent, and the once welcoming forest seemed to close in on him. Ivan's smile faded. The sky darkened faster than he expected, and soon the forest floor was bathed in dim glow of twilight. He realized with a jolt of unease that he was lost. He tried to retrace his steps, but every turn led to more confusion. The forest no longer looked like the one he had confidently marched into. Trees whispered in the wind, their voices carrying words that he couldn't quite make out. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and there was a feeling of an oppressive weight that he wasn't alone. "I'm not afraid," Ivan muttered under his breath, though his hands trembled as he gripped his slingshot tighter. As he wandered deeper, the faintest sound of laughter drifted through the trees. It wasn't the kind of laughter that brought comfort in. It was a low, mocking, and seemed to come from everywhere all at once. Ivan turned in circles, his heart pounding in his chest. "Who's there?" he called, his voice shaking. No answer. Just the sound of leaves rustling and the echo of the laughter again, closer this time. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind the trees, so tall that Ivan had to crane his neck to look up. It was the Leshi. His skin was the color of moss, his eyes glowing like pale moons, and his beard flowed down like the roots of an ancient tree. Branches seemed to grow from his back, and the ground trembled slightly with each step he took. Though he had the shape of a man, he was clearly something far older, far more powerful. Ivan gasped and stumbled backwards, his heart pounding in his chest. He raised his slingshot in a feeble attempt at defense. The Leshy smiled, a slow, creeping smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You shouldn't have come here, boy," the Leshy said, his voice like the creak of an ancient tree swaying in the wind. "The forest is not for those who show no respect." I'm not afraid of you," Ivan stammered, though his legs felt weak beneath him. He tried to run, but every direction he turned, the path turned to shift, leading him back to the same spot. The Leshi watched him with an amused expression. "All who wander in my domain learn one thing," the Leshi continued, taking a slow step forward. "The forest has its rules, and those who break them must pay the price." Ivan's defiance faded. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches like claws. The temperature dropped, and Ivan could see his breath forming clouds in the air. He was trapped. He knew it. For hours, Ivan wandered in a circle, the Leshy's laughter echoing through the trees, never far behind. Fear gnawed at him, and every rustle of the leaves made him jump. The night grew darker, and the stars above were hidden behind the dense canopy of the forest. Ivan's legs ached, and his throat was dry. There was no way out. He was alone, lost in the Leshy's domain, with no hope of escape. As the night dragged on, Ivan's bravado crumbled. Tears stung his eyes, and as he slumped against the tree, exhausted and cold, he could feel the Leshy watching him, always just out of sight. His presence a constant reminder that he was out of the forest's mercy. Finally, Ivan whispered into the stillness, "I'm sorry." The wind carried his words, and for the first time since entering the forest, the eerie laughter stopped. The silence was thick, but it was no longer oppressive, as if the forest was listening. "I'm sorry," again said Ivan, louder this time. His voice trembled. I didn't mean to disrespect the forest. I was wrong." The trees seemed to sway in response, and the air felt lighter. From the shadows, the Leshy appeared once more, towering and ancient, but there was no malice in his eyes, only the weight of something older and wiser. "You have learned," said the Leshy, his voice now softer. "The forest is not something to be taken lightly, nor are its creatures." Ivan nodded, unable to speak as he wiped his tears away. The Leshy raised a hand, and the trees parted, revealing a path, clear and straight, leading back to the village. "Go," the Leshy said. "But remember, respect the woods, and it will respect you." Ivan didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled to his feet and ran down the path, never looking back. The forest no longer like a trap, but a living, breathing thing that had allowed him to leave. As the trees thinned and the village light appeared in the distance, Ivan slowed, his heart still racing. He reached the edge of the woods just as dawn broke. The sky a soft orange glow. Ivan turned back one last time, but the Leshy was gone. The forest silent once more. From that day forward, Ivan never ventured too far into the woods again. He learned the value of respect, not just for the forest, but for the unseen forces that dwell within it. And though he told no one of his encounter, the memory of the Leshy and the lesson he learned stayed with him for the rest of his days. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. My name is Andrew. What we do here is we kind of go over some folklore. We do breakdowns. We tell stories relating to the folklore. Now, the stories are really just kind of my interpretation of it, not really basing them on anything, although there are certain aspects taken straight from the folklore. I do kind of embellish the stories a little bit, but that's just artistic representation on my part. Now, that being said, today we're talking about the Leshy. It's a Slavic myth from Russia and like Eastern Europe and stuff like that. The Leshy is kind of cool. He obviously he's a forest protector. He's an ancient spirit. Oftentimes he was talked about in the same breaths as Baba Yaga. Back when she was like an ancient god. It's cool because the Leshy, there are multiple Leshies for multiple forests, right? It seems like every forest has its own kind of Leshy, and they all like to sit around and gamble together. This is like actual lore to the Leshy. They like to sit around and gamble. Like they will sit around at like tree stumps, giant old tree stumps, and play poker. It's hilarious. They'll like gamble resources from their own forest against other Leshy. It's hilarious. There's a story about that later on. But anyways, if you like what we do here, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the little bell icon, that way you're notified whenever we upload new content. I'm going to try and do daily uploads again. It seems that, doing the uploads for 3 days in a row like I did at the beginning of the week seemed to jumpstart the algorithm again for the channel. Either that, or I'm getting massive amounts of spam subs again, which YouTube is not going to like, but it is what it is either way. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video. As always, let's get into it. In the shadowy depths of Eastern Europe's ancient forests, legends speak of a powerful spirit, one who guards the trees, animals, and the very soul of the woods. He's elusive, mischievous, and commands the respect of all who enter his domain. This is the tale of the Leshy, Slavic folklore's guardian of the wild. The Leshy, also known as the Lesavik, comes from the Slavic mythology, particularly popular in Russia, Poland, Ukraine, and surrounding regions. His name derives from the word les, meaning forest. As one of the oldest beings in Slavic folklore, the Leshy is believed to be the forest spirit with incredible powers tied to nature. Physically, the Leshy is often described as a towering figure with a wild human-like appearance. His skin might be as pale as birch bark or mossy green, blending seamlessly with the forest. His eyes are said to glow like burning embers, and his hair and beard resemble tangled vines or moss. The Leshy can change size at will, sometimes as tall as the tallest tree, other times as small as a blade of grass. He's a shapeshifter, able to take form of animals, even people, making him nearly impossible to identify when he chooses to remain hidden. According to ancient belief, the Leshy is a protector of the forest, a force that maintains the balance between humans and nature. He ensures that no harm comes to the forest or its creatures, and he does not take kindly to trespassers who fail to respect his domain. If angered, the Leshy can lead wanderers astray, confusing them with illusions until they are hopelessly lost. His power over the forest extends to the creatures within, as he's known to command animals like wolves, bears, to do his bidding. But the Leshy isn't always a malicious figure. Those who approach the forest with reverence and respect may receive his favor. Some stories say that he helps lost travelers find their way out, while others claim that he's been known to guide hunters towards game, so long as they honor the forest laws. The Leshy's love of games and gambling. Now, there's an unexpected twist for such a fearsome forest spirit. The Leshy loves a good game. Gambling in particular is one of his favorite pastimes. Throughout folklore, there are tales of the Leshy playing card games with travelers or fellow forest spirits. His games aren't just for fun, though. If you happen to encounter the Leshy and engage in a match, you might end up wagering more than you bargained for. Imagine this. You're deep in the woods, tired and uncertain of your path, when a tall, green-eyed man challenges you to a game of cards. Win, and he might offer you safe passage out of the forest. Lose, and well, he could take your memory, your voice, or leave you wandering aimlessly for days. These stories paint the Leshy as a complex figure, combining his love for mischief with a deep sense of fairness. He always honors his wagers, but beware, tricking the Leshy into losing often results in dire consequences. After all, the forest has its own sense of justice, and the Leshy ensures it is enforced. I actually went out and found a particular story that has been passed down about the Leshy, and I kind of want to. It's really more of an addendum to the main script, but I really just wanted to kind of vocalize it and put it out there just so you guys know. Like this story is the whole reason I wanted to cover the Leshy. There's a story about a squirrel migration being attributed to the Leshy's playing his gambling debt that comes from a lesser-known Slavic folktale. So the story is basically that there was a group of Leshy, one lost, and in order to pay his debts, he sent over a massive squirrel migration from one forest to another. It's hilarious. Like, I read that months ago, like back in September, and I was like, I'm going to cover this. I really, I want to cover this. The tale illustrates the mischievous side of the Leshy, combining his love for gambling and his connection to the forest creatures. In the story, the Leshy, who is notorious for challenging others to games of chance, finds himself in a high-stakes card game with another powerful forest spirit. They wager various things in the game, forest territories, animals, and even their own powers. At one point, the Leshy loses a significant hand and has to pay off a massive debt. But being the trickster that he is, he doesn't want to part with any of his beloved forest, land, or creatures. Instead, the Leshy devises a clever solution. he summons an enormous group of squirrels, hundreds, maybe even thousands, and sends them on a mass migration to the territory of his opponent as a payment for his debt. The squirrels are meant to serve his opponent by gathering food and acorns, essentially becoming a small army of foragers. This event, however, was so unusual that it drew the attention of the local villagers, who were astonished by the sudden and massive migration of squirrels moving through their forest. They couldn't explain why it was happening, so naturally they attributed it to the Leshy's magic. In their minds, it was yet another example of the Leshy manipulating the balance of the forest to suit his needs, or, in this case, to settle his gambling debts. This tale highlights the whimsical and unpredictable nature of the Leshy, who, even in the face of losing, manages to turn the situation to his advantage by using the creatures of the very forest to pay off his dues. Hilarious. While the Leshy originates in ancient tales, sightings of the forest spirit resembling him have persisted through the centuries. In the past, hunters and villagers claim to have seen strange figures lurking at the edge of the woods. These sightings often coincide with strange occurrences, animals behaving unnaturally, trails disappearing, or sudden storms rising from nowhere. One such story comes from the 18th century Russia, where a group of hunters reported being led astray by a tall, green-skinned figure. After hours of wandering, they stumbled upon the same clearing they had passed earlier, realizing that the Leshy had been toying with them. In modern times, there are reports of strange encounters deep in the forests of Eastern Europe. Hikers have shared stories or feeling watched, hearing laughter in the wind and seeing shadows that seem too large to be human. Some claim that the Leshy still roams the woods, protecting them from overdevelopment and punishing those who disrespect nature. These stories might sound like tall tales, but ask any villager who lives near the woods. They'll likely have their own version of the Leshy encounter, if they're brave enough to speak of it. While the Leshy may not be as well known as creatures like vampires or werewolves, he's made a few appearances in pop culture as well. In the popular video game series The Witcher, the Leshy, or the Leshen, appears as a powerful forest monster with his antlered skull and control over animals. The Leshen is a terrifying force, just as the ancient folklore describes. There's also a novel called The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, where the Leshy makes a brief appearance, once again serving as a guardian of the wilderness. The spirit's role in the modern fantasy and horror keeps his legend alive, reminding us that even in our age of technology, there are some places in nature we still don't fully understand. In television, the Leshy has been referenced in shows like Supernatural and Teen Wolf, further solidifying his place in popular culture as a mysterious and powerful figure tied to the forest. The Leshy is a reminder of the power and mystery that still lingers in the ancient world, a guardian of the old ways. He serves as both a protector and a trickster, enforcing respect for the forest and its creatures. Whether you believe in the existence or not, his legend serves as a cautionary tale. The forest is alive and demands respect. So, the next time you find yourself deep in the woods, listen carefully. The wind through the trees, the sudden rustle of the leaves, it might just be the Leshy watching, waiting to see if you honor the forest, or if you'll become another lost soul wandering beneath its canopy. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below if you have any stories about the Leshy, or I know it's a Slavic thing, but you could really attribute it to anywhere in the world that has woods or a forest, really. All these legends kind of coincide with another, like through different cultures. They all seem to have their own versions of the same kind of creatures. Let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, subscribe, the little bell icon, that way you're notified whenever we upload new material content. If you want to support the channel, there's a merch shelf down below. You can check that out. We got some of the coolest merch around. Like always, guys, I will see you on the next one. Peace.
Ghosts and goblins, history's lost. Where others say